To a work session of the Annapolis City Council on Thursday, February 18th, 2020 will be called to order at 3:01. At this time, would you all join us for the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
We're getting better.
The bar is really low.
Just in time to be in the chambers.
The more of us that mute, the better we get.
It just doesn't sound right with an Australian accent. That's all I'm saying. Okay, Mr. City Attorney, please present the first item on the agenda.
The first item on the agenda is ID 16-21, Mayor Buckley's 150% group.
So thank you, everybody, for being here for this presentation. I truly believe we put together a really good team here, and it was built from the community, a lot of expertise brought in from different parts of the region to really try to help our police department and be part of a community policing model that hasn't really been created in the country. I mean, we don't have anywhere we can look and say that municipality got it right. I think there's so much talent in this group that this can be the city that gets it right, you know, and it's going to take a lot of work. I think we have the right council in place for it. We have the right police chief, the right people around him. So with that, I'd like to go into a presentation, starting with Robert Horn. If you could please come forward.
Good afternoon, Mayor Buckley and the City Council. Good afternoon, I should say. I'm sorry. Been a long day. I'm Officer Horn with the Annapolis Police Department. Our program is the Positive Impact Program. We started the program around June of 2020. So our goals basically is to establish strong, positive, better relationships between the police and the community by bringing in resources and opportunity to the underserved community and our returning citizens that are coming back to Annapolis after having served time inside of our correctional facilities. So that's our goal, is to really establish those strong partnerships to build that trust between the community and the police. And as you see, the Positive Impact Program is a program to assist returning individuals to successfully re-enter society following incarceration. The program will focus on job training opportunities through education and partnerships with existing providers. And our department will also work with the Department of Parole and Probation to ensure that the clients are working towards self-sufficiency and connecting them with community services. So it's definitely a boots on ground type of program. We're in the community, and the fact that we're working with the Department of Parole and Probation, we serve as that buffer between parole and probation and the police department and the courts. That way we can actually work hand in hand, and it actually helps the Department of Parole and Probation with their caseload. So we're able to really work as a team. It really was successful. I did this for about 20 some years with Baltimore Police Department. And so we're really hopeful that this program, which it's really gotten off to a great start. The last 8 months or 9 months or so that we've been up and running. And so working with nonprofits and other community stakeholders, businesses, employers, and we're also dealing. We're not dealing just with the at-risk population or underserved population, but we're working with all segments of the community. So we've been able to provide individuals with transitional housing. We just graduated a class from an IT program. We've been able to help with employment. We've got about clients hired with the hospitals. We've gotten some of our clients into drug treatment. One particular, we were able to get out of state into a drug treatment program. We have one that's in a transitional program right now. So Julian, if we could share the slide, go to the next slide. I can't see it. Okay. So right now, currently, we have a cohort that's in the NCIA, our second cohort. Our first cohort, we started our first cohort back in September. So we graduated 4 of our Annapolis residents from the HVAC training. So we actually built out workforce development where we're working with Maryland Reentry. We're also working with Anne Arundel County Workforce. We're working with businesses. We have volunteers that are with our program as well from the community, Sandy Avery and her husband, Kevin. So they're working with the businesses in Anne Arundel County and here in Annapolis. So we're doing case management as well. And then we're also assisting LEAD with helping them to build out their program as well. So we had we had our first cohort graduate, and now we have our second cohort that's currently now in the NCIA in Baltimore. So our guys are doing very well. They're doing very well in the program, and they're really looking forward to a successful career. And basically, this is the goal of the Annapolis Police Department, is to really give opportunity and reduce crime and recidivism. Of course, you know, as Chief Jackson always say, you know, this program or this approach is not being soft on crime, but we just want to provide opportunity and deal with those social issues that's just really haven't been addressed. And so I have a message from one of the instructors from NCIA talking about the Annapolis residents. So if we could play the message from Rob.
Go. Hi, I'm Rob McLaughlin. I'm the HVAC instructor here at the Herbert J. Holcomb Vocational Training Center. We're with NCIA, National Center for Institution and Alternatives, and this is our second cohort with students from Annapolis. They are a tremendous group of people. They are very well dedicated, and their success in this class so far has been beyond everybody's expectations, and we really look forward to working with people from Annapolis here in the future. Thank you.
And Julian, if we could just show the last two photos. I just want to show our photos of our graduating class. I'm so proud of these guys. And, you know, I know when I first got here, you know, many people were skeptical that we would be able to win the hearts of these young men and women who really are so distrustful of police. And I felt like, you know, just given a little bit of time, we will be able to touch that population. And so, you know, here our first graduating class of March 2021, and our young men now are preparing for the workforce now. We're preparing their resumes, we're doing expungements, and they're also getting that peer-to-peer support network that they need. And the last slide I want to show is our new class, and we have all of our Annapolis guys. We have about 17 of our residents that are either taking a culinary class, a CDL Class B, HVAC, or automotive. These are marketable skills that if these guys completed, these are jobs that pretty much are jobs that are in demand. If we could show the last slide of our class that's in now. Should be one more photo. It should have had 2021 class women. Let me see. Is there one that says 2021 cohort?
There is not. The last one is that first Annapolis Positive Impact Program.
Okay. All right. So we have our next cohort class, which is due to graduate in May, and we're starting our next cohort, which will start shortly after their graduation. So thank you for allowing me to present.
And we thank you, Officer Horn. Thank you for meeting people where they are. And wherever you stand on these things, people are serving their sentences. They're coming home to the only infrastructure, the only support they have. And much of that is in the city of Annapolis. And so, you know, what you're doing is providing alternatives for people so they can get on with their lives. And we truly appreciate it. And I think, you know, the amount of trust you've built up in such a short time is a testament to your team.
Thank you. And I just want to share one more thing before we leave. We are getting letters from the Annapolis residents that are currently housed in the Department of Corrections. They're writing us letters, letting us know that they want to be a part of the program upon release.
Thank you so much. Anybody have any questions for Officer Horn before we move on to the next speaker? Alderman Tierney, then Alderman Gay.
I am so thrilled at seeing this. As you know, just due to the millennial kind of attitude of wanting to be project managers and all that kind of stuff, to have this trade available to them is just wonderful. And I think you answered my question, which was really what was the next step for the graduates? It sounds like you're putting resumes together for them. And I was curious at what kind of companies, you don't have to name names, but what kind of positions would they be qualified for?
So every Friday we meet at the church, and our guys will report and we do their resumes. We complete their resumes, and we have quite a few HVAC companies that so our partners or our volunteers, Kevin and Sandy, they're kind of doing all of the workforce development. So really we have a team. Myself, Pastor Carol, and Officer Smichael, we're kind of boots on ground. We're doing the recruitment. We're doing all of the community engagement. And then Kevin and Sandy, they're doing all of the business brokering. So they're working with the businesses, and they're going and establishing partnerships and having meetings so that we can pipeline our men and women into these different programs, including the hospitals. So we kind of have like a team. I kind of like compare it to a shock trauma team. You know, you have a trauma doctor, but then you have a team of doctors, and they all looking to, you know, work on a patient. And so that's kind of like how we model it, where, you know, we have a team with specific functions. So every Friday we meet, we kind of go over their resumes, and then we send them off to the different employers that we've have established relationships with. So they are getting job interviews. So our graduates have job interviews now. One of them just completed their first interview. Now they're going for the second. So, and we're looking to bring other programs here as well. So we want to bring in the plumbing. We want to bring in the electrical. So we have a lot of buy-in to this, and there are other people who want to be a part of this. So basically, we're pulling everyone together to just kind of form one solid, unified team here in Annapolis. That's fantastic. It's really a win-win. Thank you so much. And here's where it says the proud members of the Annapolis cohort. This is the second cohort. So these are our guys. So we're capturing the right guys, the right people that we want to be a part of this program. So these guys they actually passed their midterm, and Rob, who spoke, he told me that most people don't pass the first go around. All of these guys pass the first go around. All they need is opportunity. That's all they need. So.
Thank you, Alderman Gay.
Thanks. What's the annual budget of a group like Positive Impact?
Well, you know, we're just using the resources that's at our exposure. We don't really have any money. We're not spending money. We really rely heavily on our partners to kind of help us with the different needs that we have. But right now, we're actually seeking a grant. So we're just utilizing our partners. So when we need transitional housing, we have a partnership in Baltimore where I'm able to get some of our people temporary transitional housing if there's none available here. So we'll get them there, but we'll also make sure that all of their needs are taken care of, because the goal is to ultimately get them back here. But right now we have no budget.
And so do you see yourself seeking finances from the city in the future? Would this be for example, in the future, would this be a particular office of the police department, maybe a standalone office or an official office that is, fully supported by the city so that they aren't, trying to pull resources together from here and there?
Maybe, yes. And well, actually, we are seeking a reentry grant. It's $1 million. So we're going for that grant to try to address some of the barriers that we do face. One being transportation, because we have to transport our men and women from Annapolis to the training facility. So we want to make sure that they're successful. So
where's the training facility?
It's in Baltimore. Yeah, so we transport them to and from. Actually, NCIA assists with bringing them back to Annapolis. So their training is Monday through Thursdays from 9 to 1. So we're on the road at 8 o'clock, and then NCIA has a transportation service that brings them back.
What's the average age of a participant?
So the age is anywhere from 18 on up.
But so would you though say are you getting more young people or older people?
We're getting more older people, but we do have some young people. But we get most of our population that we are serving are a little bit older.
And then, so what would a retention rate be? So if you start a course in June with 20 students, when you get to September, is it consistent? Are you sticking with the 20? Or lower retention rates?
So the first cohort, we started with 14. The first cohort, we graduated 4. So this is the second cohort. We started with 22.
Okay.
We have 17. Now.
Okay.
So that's a good look compared to the first cohort. But we started with 14, the first cohort, and we graduated 4.
And so is the expectation, this is my last question, is the expectation that, is this, and I would oppose, this is why he's calling it the 150 group, I don't know, is that you're coordinating with the Office of Community Caring Services, and how are those two intertwined?
Now,
I guess that's part of the presentation.
Yeah. So the other groups that we're all working together, like LEAD and the other organizations, basically we're just kind of working as a partnership and also as a referral. So if there's something that maybe LEAD may need from us, they can reach out to us. And if there's something that I might need from LEAD, I can reach out to them. So it's more so like all of us just coming together under one umbrella to kind of work together, share resources, and to just, be able to help the citizens of Annapolis.
Thank you. Alderman Pendell Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to give a great applause to Officer Horn and the Annapolis City Police Department. They've done a lot in a short period of time. with little or no financing. To me, that's a definitely evidence that they're dedicated and committed to what they want to do to help our city. And thank you all so very, very much. We truly appreciate it. Stay safe on the road, Officer Horn.
Thank you. And I'm glad to be here. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Before I pass it over to Bishop Carroll, I do want to say I sat down with coffee with Officer Horn the other day, and he feels really strongly that we have a great shot here in Annapolis. We're a compact city where everybody knows each other, and he truly feels like we have great opportunities here. So I really thank you again. So next up is Bishop Carroll with the APD.
Carroll he had an emergency. He had to leave town.
Okay, no worries. Then we'll go straight over to Erin Lee.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. And I just wanted to thank the council, very much for allowing me some time today. And I just wanted to talk about my current office, which is the Office of Community Resources, which currently operates under the Office of City Management. And currently I work under the Assistant City Manager, Lynn Farrow. And so just as a part of my main jobs, but they're working with the community, they include but aren't limited to mostly connecting residents to financial, food, physical, and mental health resources. I would say a majority of my calls or referrals are definitely helping out residents with unemployment issues, also seeking mental health issues, or what is around in the area. I've also been able to connect with our state representatives in order to help a lot of Annapolis residents in receiving their unemployment, as well as being able to talk to a person versus just talking to the robots over the line. So I find that very helpful for the community as well. And also, some of my work was detailed in the Capital Gazette in the February 3rd edition in a title called A New Start, New Things, New Energy. Annapolis program coordinates Robinwood's family's recovery from a fire. So just a short summary of what I was able to help both families out with is 2 families were unfortunately burned out of their homes in Robinwood area. And with help from the Office of Emergency Management, by partnering with them, I was able to connect with both families, assess their needs, talk with the mothers, see about how the children were doing, whether it be in school or mental health wise. And through there, luckily, the city of Annapolis has also been just very giving. So it was not that hard to seek out donations. And once they were there, it did take coordination on my part, as well as the mother's parts as well. They worked very hard as well. And we were able to ensure that they were together and ready by the time they were rehomed by HACA. Actually, they are all in their new homes now. I've gotten an update from both families, and it's just, wonderful to see that they are doing better. They're recovering and looking forward to just getting back to normal, how things were before. So one of the things, probably one of the biggest highlights of my job has been working with the 150% team. I've been very fortunate that I do share an office with Katie Edwards, who is the lead Annapolis program manager, and Erica Griswold, who is a community outreach support navigator, and also with Asia Wallace, neighborhood engagement specialist for the No Harm Violence Intervention and Prevention program. So actually at the Stanton Center, we're called the Mayor's Resource Department. So one of the things that we definitely do is connect with different resources that we may know, that we have partnered with ourselves. We bounce a lot of different ideas off of each other, and about how to best support the community, and also by supporting each other as a team. And also I've been able to partner with Laura Gutierrez. She's just been a fantastic resource and a worker, especially with the Hispanic community. I've been able to direct resources and help Hispanic families with connecting to resources in Annapolis with her assistance. And also I've been consulting with Officer Horn and Officer Sminkle. Officer Sminkle has been incredibly welcoming. And I know mental health is definitely not only just one of my focuses, but then also one of my passions, something I would love to bring in the future, more mental health resources to the area, as well as more trainings as well for everyone who might be interested in as far as city government goes, to basically not just recognize, mental health issues, but then how best to work with them within the community to have a more empathetic approach, as well as to help connect, have more local resources versus something that may be outside of the city. And so far, I was going to say I am quite new to the Annapolis region, but I have worked with the Annapolis Family Support Center for about 2 years, and they're right by the Department of Social Services. And I just wanted to, thank the staff as well as the 150 team as well. It's been great, despite everything with happening right now with the lockdowns. I have been able to connect with residents as well as different branches of the city governments in order to assist them with Annapolis residents. And that's about it.
Well, thank you, Laura. It's so exciting to have the resources that you bring, a social worker in the team. That is a really big part of helping people in the city of Annapolis. Someone came up to me yesterday at Mount Olive's vaccination site and said to say a huge thank you for you, because her house was burned down or had the fire in it, one of the ones that had the fire in it. And that's a devastating moment. You lose all those personal possessions. It must be really, really tough to not be able to salvage anything. So I want to say thank you for what you're doing, and we can throw it up some questions if anyone has any questions for Erin. Alderman Pendell Charles.
Just a comment. She's been here a short time, I think since November, and obviously her day is very busy, and we thank you so very much for the skill set that you bring to all of us, Ms. Lee. We really appreciate
it. All right, thank you.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, thank you again, Erin. I'm going to go on to Katie Edwards from the lead program in the mayor's office. Thank you, Katie.
All righty. Thank you so much for having me. Good afternoon, Council. Thank you for opening up the space for the 150% Club. I'm really, group, however you want to call it. I'm glad we're all here. I'm going to share some goals of the LEAD program, how it is people-centered and community-based, and how I work with all of the other folks here today. So starting off, the goals of letting everyone advance with dignity are grounded in the structure of the LEAD national model, as well as the current needs occurring in Annapolis. The goal of LEAD Annapolis is to divert low-level crimes to long-term, low-barrier case management. Currently, we are working with the following stakeholders: the Mayor's Office, the Public Defender's Office, State's Attorney, Department of Probation, County Executive's Office, Annapolis Police Department, Anne Arundel County Police Department, Anne Arundel Department of Health, Office of Emergency Management, and Crisis Response. LEAD Annapolis hopes to work with each of these stakeholders to ensure that all future LEAD participants have a coherent and agreed upon diversion program, which has wraparound client-centered care. In regards to our people-centered and community-based philosophy, when we are able to hire on the future client specialist and those that will help us navigate the neighborhoods we are serving, all of those people will be from the neighborhoods that we are serving. We hope to implement a peer modality in that way and ensure that we are community-based in our approach and in the team members that we bring on. Additionally, LEAD Annapolis case management will be purely based on the goals that the LEAD participants name. The LEAD Annapolis team will help the participant build their goals and support their vision of life, which uplifts that person's definitions of health and happiness. And in regards to how I work with everybody else here, currently, we are working with almost every member of the 150% group. The following programs have collaborated and will be future pathways for LEAD Annapolis participants to learn about the program and receive services contingent upon eligibility. The VIP team, Take Care outreach teams, Annapolis Police Department Reentry Program, and Erin Lee will all be working collaboratively with LEAD Annapolis to ensure every person we touch in the community is given as many resources as possible. LEAD Annapolis is currently working with information gathered from VIP sessions, therefore ensuring the community voice is heard and implemented in the client-centered, harm reduction-based wraparound LEAD services. I have also made presentations to the Take Care team to ensure they are informed of the program and will be able to connect and then offer diversion pathways to folks in the community once we are in the launching phase. In regards to the Annapolis Police Department, Officer Horn has gone out of his way to bring the lead and VIP team to Baltimore to see the workforce training programs, which we previously saw, and introduce us to the Baltimore lead team and understand how they currently function, as well as connect us to violence interruption programs currently operating in Baltimore City. I also look forward to working with the reentry students and ensuring that in the future they have a direct pathway into lead services. I also work with Erin Lee in the office, as she mentioned, and we have lots of conversations and collaborating resource documents for the entire city of Annapolis. The 150% group has truly come together to collaborate and share information in order to better serve all residents throughout the city of Annapolis. And I do have some pictures. So here we are in Baltimore with the Violence Interruption Program. If we go to the next one, Julian, that would be great. And this is us at the Baltimore City Police Department. On the far right, you see Lieutenant Olson, who currently runs the program, the Baltimore City Lead Program. Right next to him, you might recognize Officer Horn. And then we have Erica Griswold, who I also work with in the office, myself, and then Asia Wallace, who we all were able to go together and learn about the awesome things that they have done and the 240 participants they have been able to enroll into the program over the last 2 to 3 years. And this is just a small visual of what's going on with the reentry workforce programs. I had the honor of being introduced to all the instructors and the participants. This is one of the instructors who teaches classes about car mechanics and is a really wonderful, kind guy. Everyone had immense respect for him, and I could really see how they're able to be so successful in their programming.
So thank you, Katie. And can you tell us how much the grant that you drew down to start this program is?
In regards to the fiscal capacity?
Yeah, so it's a state program. Adatola did excellent work to bring this to the city, and it's over a few years, is that right?
Yes, sir. So we are in phase 1, which that budget line is $55,000. When we enter into phase 2, July 2021 is when we will launch the program and have operating services for the city of Annapolis to take advantage of. That budget is $237,000. And then for year 3, in which we'll hopefully have we have the system in place that is stable and coherent. That budget is $235,000. After that, we will be seeking additional funds, either in grants or other capacities, to support the program based on the successful outcomes.
Right. Thank you, Katie. Did anybody have any questions? Alderman Finlayson?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And actually, my question is more for Erin, Ms. Lee, who well, she's still here, I guess. We funded the social worker position. And I guess I'm just wondering how, and my hope was when we came up with this idea, as well as the funding, that we would increase the Office of Community Caring with additional social workers. And I hear how well she has is working with and kind of collaborating with the others in that department. And Ms. Lee, thank you for coming back. I guess I'll just ask it, how do you feel about additional support from additional social workers? Or are the other support systems that are in place sufficient for your job? Because you were kind of designing that office. So where are we, and have we gone in a different direction? Have we broadened our spectrum? Someone's cleaning in my house, so forgive me the background noise. So anyway, that's kind of my question. Do you understand what I'm asking?
Got that, Erin?
Hi, yes. So, well, actually, I would love in the future to have another social worker on staff. Unfortunately, due to COVID right now, a lot of our initiatives have been scaled back, but I know as is right now, with a lot of the referrals I'm receiving and then also partnering with other agencies, I know that once COVID is no longer a thing and everything starts to open up a little bit more, I'll definitely have a lot more to do. And I know that we could definitely bring in another social worker or maybe two, considering the circumstances, in order to assist with the workload. But I mean, at this time, working in the office here with Katie and Erica, we've been very supportive of each other, and definitely as it is right now, by consulting with each other and by working with each other so closely, I definitely have like a new appreciation of what LEAD does, and they also have social workers as well, and what we can do for the community. So
I think we're looking to plan ahead, and hopefully we're going to be in a different place sooner, rather than later. And so I think, especially as we're about to embark on our budget process, that we need to think about what next year and the following year will look like. So thank you. And thank you, Katie, for sharing. You guys are doing exciting work. So thank you all.
And we want to thank you, Alderman Finlayson. I know it was a high priority for you to get a social worker for us, and I don't think it could have been better timing with us coming out of COVID and all the damage that was done and the anxiety that period in everyone's lives. So I think I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Well, I think everyone was committed to it. So I think it was truly a team effort. So thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Savage, then I saw Alderman Gay's hand, sorry.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess my question is for Ms. Edwards. I'm curious, you mentioned, 8,000, I think, people that participated in the Baltimore program in the past few years. Do you have any goals in terms of, like, how many people do you think your program will be able to reach? So I'm really eager to see how this turns out. I think it's an exciting program. I want to thank all of you for your work on this. But yeah, so do you have any ideas for your goals and numbers?
Absolutely. So the number coming out of Baltimore as of last week is 248 diverted individuals. And this is really based on the capacity when it comes to the legal amount social workers or client specialists can take on in the state of Maryland. And that is a caseload of 25. So if we're able to take on 2 to 3 more client specialists or case managers, that will allow us to have capacity to serve about 75. I think in our first run, we will keep it to about 50, if I'm going to be realistic in regards to getting services and getting the program down pat. If we are able to reach 75 and go to full capacity, we welcome that. But I do think it will be word of mouth, and it will be gaining the trust of those who have had chronic issues within the justice system that were public health related. So it'll be a long-term effort in gaining participants.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for the question.
Alderman Gay.
Thanks. And Rob, thank you for the question too. I'm sorry, somebody would call me as soon as I get Thank you for the question too, Rob, because that was in as well, Alderwoman Finlayson. That's kind of what I was hoping to get a better understanding of in this second half. One note, I think that at the direction of the city manager, the IT crew, there should be a tab on the city page for the Office of Community, Community Resources. With this information available. I thought it was Community Caring Services, but they say Office of Community Resources. But with this information available, so that residents 24/7 can go on, submit a claim, do whatever they have to do, an email is shot to you, so that first thing in the morning you're able to see this and we can get it popping. Because I think that's the thing. We could be helping a lot more people. It's just that we're doing stuff word of mouth, and we're just trying to like ease out of the garage when we should be smashing the gas out. So if we could get, a social media campaign going, just something signifying that, yes, this office is here. and it's working. And then two, to the point that that was in the same point, that Katie had made and that Alderman Savage had made a time scale on how by this amount of time we expect to help this amount of people and in this amount of communities, and follow back at a certain time so that we can be sure that the resources have been fully met. And then I think also too, if the office is going to continue to be under, because I'm just, and then correct, someone else can correct me if I may be wrong, because I'm thinking ahead of time as Alderwoman Finlayson was. And is there a problem with this office standing under the city manager? Because if a new mayor was to come in and ask his new city manager to disassemble this program, he could do so immediately, correct? So we don't have any security in this office. And so we need to do so before this election comes up.
Mr. City Manager?
Yes, and that's a great question, Alderman Gay. And the answer is that we don't intend to keep it under the city manager. I don't want it part of my office forever and ever, but it'll take a charter amendment and an ordinance to establish it within the code, within the charter. So that's what our intention is to do that. And whatever name we end up giving, I thought it was Office of Community Services, but I'm hearing different things today. So who knows what the real name is? But anyway, as soon as we establish a name, then we'll move forward with that charter amendment and with the ordinance to formally establish that. And I think we need to look at the bigger picture long term, because there's a whole lot of synergy that these great people that we have working on these programs have. And right now they're spread between the police and the mayor's office and the city manager's office. So I think we need to at least have a discussion of bringing at least part of these groups together under that office that we're going to establish under the code. So that would be the longer term goal is to do that. Erin's doing a lot of work to set up the Office of Community Service. In addition to doing all the outreach, she's also doing a lot of thinking about what that should look like and what functions that they can deal with. So we'll continue that and get that finalized as well.
Yeah, this is something that we talked about previously at the beginning. And I'm thinking now, we get the best of both worlds. You potentially have the best of both worlds here if we play this right with the budget season coming up. And I'm saying that because, to your point, that I obviously it has to be in a standalone office, but then there needs to be a department head. Otherwise, you just have individual employees working on separate tasks with no, with no one to be responsible to. And so I think that should be the next step, that we have that. So there is, if we bring in 2 more social workers or whatever we do, Erin is at the top or somebody's just running the show. And then we get to your point, we create almost a hybrid office of police and this community caring services so that we get what everybody wants. You get the community services that our communities desperately need, but you also give the police the opportunity for optics and stuff to build trust, as appearing as if they are doing community service, but, appearing as if it is not run out of the police department. And so I think that should be the next step, definitely in this budget season. I mean, if this is this direction we wish our city to go into, we just got to kind of protect that.
Thank you, Alderman Tierney.
Thank you, Mayor. And sort of just to DeJuan's point is, I guess this question is for Robert. I'm still intrigued with this whole HVAC stuff going on, but there's grants out there. A lot of these big companies like Trane and Carrier and Westinghouse, they like to do charity, and they, I know they're heavily involved in like STEM programs and stuff. So there's money out there for specifically for training and using their equipment for training purposes. Who spearheads the grant applications, or, to DeJuan's point, who does it go to? What is the name of that entity that receives the grant? Or are you all sort of working on your own?
Yeah, so I know Rhonda McCoy, who's here with APD. She's kind of working on that side with the grants, and then our volunteers, our partners that's working with us. That's really kind of their field of expertise. So that's something that they're really focused on. And like I mentioned, myself, my partner, and my partner, Officer Smichael, and Pastor Curl, we're kind of like in the community, boots on ground, building the relationships. We're doing the recruitment, really trying to pull the people into the program, just building those relationships. So far as the grants, I'm not really too familiar.
Yeah, I'll send Lynn Farrow some information that might get to the right person. But again, to Dewan's point, eventually we'll need an entity that will give you more leverage to get, more grant funding, I think.
Yeah.
And Rhonda McCoy has expert abilities in that, so we were lucky to get her on the team.
Oh, great.
As well. We're going to go on now to Laura Gutierrez. Thank you so much. Oh, sorry, Alderman Pindels.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to thank Ms. Edwards for her presentation and all she's doing. I had a project I was working on, and she was extremely helpful with something I needed, and she was Johnny on the spot. So thank you so much, Ms. Edwards.
Thank you.
Thank you. So Laura Gutierrez is next. Sheila's phone is
bringing in the music. Thank you for that introduction.
People calling for appointments all day, but it's all good.
Okay, so I'm Laura. I am the Hispanic Community Services Specialist here in the Mayor's office. The program that I am running right now is called Take Care Annapolis, or Cuídate Annapolis. And essentially what we do is holistic health education, outreach, and engagement. So what we have been really focused on throughout the whole pandemic is basically being present in our neighborhoods, talking to our neighbors, sharing information about COVID, how to protect yourself, how to prevent, spreading COVID, how to prevent getting COVID. And then through our holistic health equity approach, we also consider health not to just be about specific, health illnesses, but also about social determinants of what a person could be living through. So we address, for example, do you have access to Wi-Fi? Because that could create stress as you're trying to work from home or trying to get your kids engaged in school. Do you have, access to resources to help you with your rent or utility bills? So we've been helping to connect to those sorts of things. We have distributed massive amounts of PPE to all our neighbors. We've gone house to house, knocking on doors, putting information and flyers under doors as well. And then at different events that we were invited to. So on that little slide that I had created, there's a photo of, for example, one place we were actually invited to talk about how to prevent COVID, what the resources were and the new resources that we had at the local, county, or state level, and then we did different pop-up events throughout different parts of the city, as you can see on the top right, just to also create access to different information and resources. So that's generally what we've been doing. The way we've been working is essentially by being present in communities and having our neighbors sort of tell us what's going on, and with that driving our next steps and so sort of data to action is what I like to say. We not only had one community needs assessment survey, but we also have done different types of surveys about, what do you know about COVID? What are the myths around COVID? What are you hearing about COVID? Where are you hearing it from? So all of that can then direct the messaging that we create around that, for example. And in ways that we're working with our other partners here. So Aaron mentioned how we've worked together. Tola has been really helpful in terms of the outreach, right, with the African-American outreach. Vaccination promotion, we've been working on that together a lot with OEM on the vaccination clinics. So we are now also helping the county and Luminous Health to run community clinics in the city. So we actually just had 2 events this week, Mount Olive and Iglesia Manuel. So we worked with OEM on that. We worked with Tola. We worked with Erica came out, and lots of different people, right? So I think it's sort of been shared by all of us already, so how we've been connecting and working together. But just to reiterate a little bit that this is definitely something that is continuous and constant. Then in terms of other things that we do and impact that we were trying to make is, one, we wanted to have culturally appropriate messaging. So that was sort of about that data also that we wanted to gather, assessing and prioritizing the needs of our community. So then we could then act directly on that. Building trust in community. And I do think that if, in the future, we could speak to the ways that we feel that we have built trust since we began, creating access to resources, bringing resources to our neighborhoods, and sort of looking forward. One of our things is building more leadership and community leadership and helping to work on that angle. But basically what we had seen in the beginning was that COVID really tore off this Band-Aid on gaps to services and the disparities, the racial disparities. So what we tried to do was really delve deep into that and work specifically in targeted communities to be able to create a little bit more equitable access. So.
And Laura, can you speak to the communication tool you set up within the Hispanic community?
Yeah, sure. So one of those things of when we were asking for information in our needs assessment program, for example, we were basically saying, what's the best way of communicating, right? What's the best way for us to engage with you? Where do you get your information? And what we found in the Hispanic community particularly was that although we expected, for example, for them to say, I get my information via Facebook, that was actually a very low percentage of the people we spoke to actually responded to that. And over 80% were interested in getting information via text. So what we did, and that was also in partnership with OEM, OEM has a system, Civic Ready. So we were able to quickly connect to that platform and start sending out text messages about the different resources and different questions. So for example, also, as we were trying to address COVID concerns and concerns around vaccination, we would just say, hey, do you have any concerns about getting the vaccine? If you want to speak to a health promoter, respond yes. And if they responded yes, then we would just distribute those phone numbers. We would have a call with our neighbors and just talk about COVID. And sometimes that is 2 minutes. Sometimes that can be much longer, as you can imagine. But the idea was to also make sure that we were having those conversations, because not everybody is going to be, just processing things at the same level and in the same ways. So we need to make sure that we are creating those different methods. And the texting base has been something that has been really, really helpful in terms of access to resources.
And I wanted to speak to the fact that you're a hot commodity, Laura. Your team has been sought after by the hospital, by the county, and they are following your lead, or City of Annapolis' lead. So I want to thank you. Laura's office is right next to mine, so I'm picking up her microphone. Any questions? We got 5 minutes before we go on to the next one, and then Tola is next. Alderman Finlayson.
You're on mute.
Yes, thank you. My question is, this past week we've heard about 2 clinics for COVID vaccines, but there are any number of clinics in the Black community, particularly in the churches. So I guess the question is, how did they get into your pipeline? I've been fielding calls all day from Mount Olive. I'm getting a reverberation now, and I'm not next door. Because they were not able to get in at Mount Olive. And so we've been trying to schedule them. So how do we get into that pipeline that you have? Or is there someone else in the mayor's office that concentrates on the African-American community?
So they can contact me. We actually had a call with partners that, Paula and our coordinator, Tiona Hayes, helped to create that meeting and make sure that we were reaching out to as many people as we could in a short amount of time, of course. And we have tried to connect with as many people as we can, and we are open to obviously continuing to connect with anybody who's interested. So I am happy to have that conversation with anybody interested. I do know that at Mount Olive, we didn't get to vaccinate all the people who are interested, and that is something that is continuing. We are still receiving those phone calls as well. We do have a link set up, and it's www.tinyurl.com/Annapolis vaccines. So our neighbors who are interested in getting their vaccinations in our neighborhoods can, register there. They can call us. We have 2 phone lines now. We have one in English and one in Spanish. The teams are managing that and sharing the phone and taking turns managing that phone throughout the day. And they are also, receiving calls during the weekend. I do know we also receive a lot of calls at the mayor's office, and that's another option for anybody who also needs to connect. And Berenice has all the information on how to bring people into that. And then we have physical places. So what we've been trying to work on is bringing in businesses interested in helping to sign up for vaccines, so that anybody who needs to just do it in person can show up at said business, say, I'm here to register for the vaccine, and then on Mondays, they return that information to us. So we have a couple different methods. I'm happy to also continue talking about that offline if you're interested, and I can sort of share everything that we've got going, or I can send an email out to everybody about those different ways.
I think an email would be very helpful, especially with the link that we can distribute to residents in our respective wards. So thank you.
Pendel Charles.
Yeah. Just a quick thank you to Laura. She hit the ground running. And we thank her for all her efforts. She's truly 24/7, 365. Thank you so much, Laura.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Payan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. How long has this program been in effect? I mean, when exactly, what was the start date, roughly?
We started August 10th, 2020.
All right. Have you seen any drop in crime result of this?
I'm sorry, that broke up there.
I said, have you seen any drop in the crime rate as a result of your efforts so far?
So we're not specifically focused on crime rates, so I'm not actually tracking that. We're focused on the health equity, and so we're tracking, for example, the number of vaccines, the number, the COVID positivity rates, and things like that. I can't exactly address that question.
Okay. Well, I have more questions, but I'll save it for another time. Mayor, thank you.
Okay. Alderman Gay.
Before I start, is something going on, or is it just me? Like, am I hearing? Is that just my computer? Maybe. Okay. Could you repeat the tiny URL again? You said
tinyurl.com/Annapolis vaccines. And we also have it in Spanish. It's the same, tinyurl.com/vacunas Annapolis.
Can you send that to me?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will send all the information, and also how, if anybody's interested in signing up to be a community site, I can send you guys the link for that as well, which that is run directly by the county. And then if anybody is going to be in Annapolis, they will also be letting me know. So we can reach out.
You built this site by yourself?
Yeah, it's just a survey.
And so you're managing this, collecting data for COVID vaccination with your small team?
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. Yes. Yeah. How are you doing this? That's great. And how active is this site? Because yeah, we need, that's like you're tracking, that's key. Because then you're able, I'm hearing something in the back, but then you're able to get like ethnicity, just all of this data that we need in trying to track the vaccination process. So are you storing this data and sharing it, or what's the plan?
It is saved. I am not sharing it publicly, obviously, because there's people's personal information in there. And what we are doing at each community clinic that the Take Care team is running and helping to coordinate in the community is we actually have a survey. So like I have some from yesterday, right? So we have a community needs assessment survey that we're doing at each site. And that data we're going to hope to basically be able to publish a report on as well. So that's sort of one of the.
And this is all okay. So yeah, it's been very. So we just need to replicate this, and then put it in our. Maybe do we held a site maybe in the 4th or 6th ward by any chance?
Not yet. No.
Okay, so we should coordinate with you to do that, so that we can have access to this link and the process that you're using. So we could do that offline. I really appreciate that.
Sorry, I'm going to go on to Tola now for the last presentation. And then we have another presentation after Tola finishes. Thank you.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Here representing the No Harm VIP team. So the No Harm VIP team aims to bring as many resources as possible to Annapolis neighborhoods most vulnerable, or Annapolis communities most vulnerable neighborhoods that have history of high crime, and provide support to these neighborhoods and ensure that people are met with a hands-on approach where they are at, with direct person-to-person services, and that are not internet-based. Our 4 main values are to empathize, to engage, empower, and enrich communities. So I wanted to just speak about kind of the last 60 days of No Harm and what we've been doing. So we hired Erica Griswold as a community outreach support navigator. We hired Asia Wallace as a neighborhood engagement specialist. Both of them had actually been working with the mayor's office previously. Asia Wallace under the Take Care team, and Erica Griswold was just a community outreach support navigator, but they joined the No Harm team to get it rolling. And we currently have 2 de-escalators, credible messages on staff, where we have 4 people pending their urinalysis screenings. So what we've done is gone out in the communities and promoted our programming through messaging, as far as giving out T-shirts with these messages that say stop hurting, start healing, as well as solutions, not shootings. And our first real engagement activities have been 5 community listening sessions. The main focus of these sessions is to listen. So we don't want to go into communities and kind of preach about what we think their communities need. We want to listen to what residents want, particularly the youth. So we started in Eastport. February 24th. We had 13 residents, and everything is barring social distancing. So we wanted to keep the crowd small. So we had 13 residents at Eastport. And then we went back March 4th. We had 10 residents to attend. Some of the feedback we got was for example, one youth resident, he expressed having the opportunity to start his own business. He started out raking leaves in the summer and helping residents take groceries and clean sidewalks. He wants to save his money and start his own business. Another resident expressed wanting to be a real estate agent. And then an adult parent expressed making gardens and finding more activities for youth in the city. Some general feedback was creating sports programs, possibly bringing a Boys and Girls Club to Eastport, more college training for higher education. And also many expressed the want to have city-led or partner-led trips outside of the city. For example, to go to Sky Zone, Six Flags, go-karting, bowling. A resident actually who gives other residents community resources in her neighborhood, was asking about how the city could support her and providing a space where she could collect donated furniture and items that she receives. Now, one general observation from the Robinwood Eastport listening sessions, when we would talk about, do you feel safe in your neighborhood? Most residents said no. And because we were dealing with a lot of youth, it was very impactful for them to have that opinion about their own neighborhoods. But we looking at the data, we understand why. So with the Robinwood sessions, we had a lot of youth expressing the need to have some type of mentorship program or big brother, big sister program. We actually had one resident say she wanted to be a lawyer. We had one resident, teenage young lady. So we had two sessions, Rob. So the first session, we asked them, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she said she wanted to be a plastic surgeon. And the next session, we actually invited a professional nurse who worked in plastic surgery to talk with her one-on-one. So that's one of the goals of our program is when we identify young people that want a particular profession, we want to connect them with a professional, particularly local, that probably, either came from their community or came from the city that would be able to kind of give them some guidance on future career paths. Okay. And so the Robinwood sessions were held February 25th and March 3rd. February 25th, we had 10 residents, and then March 3rd, we had 15 residents. So if Julian, could you just show the photos again and of Eastport, just the listening session photos? So this is Eastport. Eastport, right? Robinwood. And I just want to stop at this particular one. So after a session, I was returning to Robinwood the next Friday just to drop off some T-shirts, and I saw one of the attendees, the young lady wearing a T-shirt. So I gave the rest of the group some T-shirts, and they just tried to take a group photo. But it just showed that there's buy-in from the community because again, I don't think anybody really wants violence in their community. So, we're trying to break the cycle of violence, but also kind of reevaluate how people look at their own communities. So changing mind states is very important. So I want to talk about some next steps. So we're going to continue the community listening sessions. We're coordinating no harm days. Our goal is to have a no harm day every Friday in April, where we would have an outdoor community celebration, bringing in resource providers and such. We'll be launching neighborhood night walks in May. We are supporting we support city initiatives through logistical support. If you can go back to the photo of Erica, she's actually helping sign up somebody for vaccination. So we supported the Take Care vaccination program in Mount Olive, but it allowed us to build more relationships and let more community members know about what we're doing with No Harm. So could you go to the photo from the Carpenters Union? So one of our other next steps is to develop signature engagement programs for each neighborhood, focusing on youth and adult-specific development programs. So the Carpenters Union have reached out to us about finding some young people at the Annapolis High School that might be interested in learning construction trades. And one thing that they said is that they have a lot of Anne Arundel County residents because they have a good partnership with Cat North and Cat South, but they don't have a lot of Annapolis residents. But the man in the blue shirt, he's actually from Annapolis, and he reached out directly to express the need to connect people from Annapolis with these resources. So I'll be working with Alderman Pendell Charles to connect with the school system and focus on getting Annapolis residents into these programs. Another activity is the eviction prevention programs that we did, and that was just focused on the hacker properties, but connecting residents and trying to find out exactly what their issues were as far as avoiding eviction. So the other goal that we have for April, or from probably May, is to launch a No Harm VIP basketball exhibition league. It'll be a 3-on-3 tournament where resident or participants will be engaged in basketball, but also they will learn self-development programming. As far as funding, we plan to seek funding from the state and possibly any other organization that would want to invest in our programming. Now, the No Harm team has been working diligently since January, but we did actually launch No Harm last March in the middle of the pandemic and provided virtual Narcan delivery services to residents. The Violence Intervention Program, or VIP part of No Harm, was something strategically to focus on violence. As we build, we want to include violence interruption, homeless prevention, and overdose prevention as the overarching goals of No Harm. I did want to bring in Erica Griswold real quick, just so she could speak on one of the examples of the work she's able to do working with No Harm.
So good afternoon, everyone. Council and Mr. Mayor, good afternoon. Thanks for having me. Thank you, Tola. This experience with No Harm has just been amazing in so many ways, going out into the communities and connecting with these, with the youth and the parents there. During the outreach there, we received a complaint on March 8th from one of the Robinwood residents, her mom. This resident had a history of mental problems where she just wouldn't let them in terms of HACA when it came to her having her house inspected. She wouldn't let them in. She was off her medication. It just got violent. She was moved from one location because of her housing situation to another location. So she just had some issues with her mental state and HACA. So during that time, after we got the complaint, I was able to get with the property manager and get all of the information. I then reached out to the resident. When I reached out to the resident, I was really able quickly to assess her situation, what was going on with her, and then offer every resource possible that I knew. So I gave her a list of things to do for her inspection the next time she get inspected. I told her how important it was for her to get back on her medication and be cooperative so that she can have a place to stay for her and her children. And she took my notes and did everything I asked her to do. When I followed up, that was on the 8th. So we got it on the 8th. Her inspection was the 16th. I followed up with her. She did everything she had to do. When they went in there, she passed her inspection. Now, previously, her situation was that it was items and clothes on the floor. So she was fussing back and forth with HACA, saying they shouldn't worry about items on my floor. They should just worry about safety. So I explained to her again. I even offered her services to come and help her clean up her place. She declined, but that's okay. I wanted her to know that we were representing her, kind of being the liaison between HACA and these residents, because sometimes they feel like that it's just not no help or hope. So she did everything I asked her to do. And when they went back for the inspection on Tuesday, she passed it with an exception of having things on her floor still. But then I found out she didn't have dressers. So simple thing as furniture. So I took that information, went back to the property manager. We collaborated in resources, and now we're gonna get her a dresser next week. So next month in April, when she had her next inspection, her things will be in dressers, because that was the one of the main issue. Yes.
Thank you, Alderman Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That I think puts a stamp on what our 150% group is doing. That to me makes it all worth it. One question and one comment. We're hearing a lot. We're talking about finance and resources, and I'm looking to Alderman Arnett, who's the finance chair of our council, to see what we can do in our next budget to be able to fund some of these wonderful initiatives that we've heard about that work today. And one thing, that's my question, if we can. And the other comment I have is, if we can reach one family, that provides a ripple effect to others. And Mr. Ajay indicated about the children and how he went and took the items, and they really gravitated towards the clothing. And so 1 to 2 to 4 to 8 to 16 is how we actually make a difference in our city. And I'm so glad we've had this work session today. It is many of the things I already knew about, but I learned some new things. But I think what we've heard today should be enough for us to catapult ourselves into actually putting some dollars to what we're doing here. Yeah. Thank you so very much for the opportunity. Thank you, Ms. Griswold, and thank you, Mr. Ajay.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Nobody was here to ask for money. We were just showing everybody what the work that's being done, but we would never say no. I do have to move on to the next program. If you could do a quick question, Alderman Gay.
Just echoing Fred's point, that I think these initiatives are great, but if we could somehow parallel this with less crime in our communities, it'd be even better. And so we don't have time to discuss it, but I just would like to see how can we, pair the two, because ideally that's, what's supposed to happen. So, and for example, with the no harm in particular, like after the shooting the other day, if we could have had a presence, that would have been great. But we could just follow up on those things, little notes.
Thank you. Quick question, Alderman Peon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What Alderman Gay brought up is what I was getting at a few moments ago. I'm very concerned that they're not even keeping statistics about crime in the various communities. That was the entire purpose of our funding this program. And I don't know the circumstances under which folks are hired, but if we don't see a drop in crime, then I don't think the program has been successful. And I don't even know how you can measure it if you're not measuring crimes in the various neighborhoods. That is deeply concerning to me. Thank you.
I just want to say we are working on having an agreement to be able to share the data on crime. I mean, one of the main concerns we were looking at was murder. I mean, there haven't been any murders and in the last, 3 months. But again, overall crime, we're working with the APD to have a structure where we can actually measure that.
Well, we're supposed to be giving people alternatives to committing crimes, particularly violent crimes. And if we're not measuring, providing any measures of what the crimes are and by whom they're committed, I fail to see how we can say something is successful or frankly not successful.
He's defining it.
I'm definitely disturbed to hear that the apparent purpose of this thing is not the one that we legislated. And I agree. I mean, I agree with the principle of the program and what I think the purpose of the program is, but I'm not hearing things that are encouraging in that regard from a number of the folks that have testified before us. I agree, they're no doubt doing good things, but come on, this is supposed to reduce crime. How do we know if it's working? We don't just throw money at a problem. That's not the way to solve things. And, I want to know if it's working or not.
Well, Alderman Pound, we are measuring it, and we are taking a social approach to crime. And if this presentation didn't impress you, I understand. I think everyone's done a good job. So with that, I thank everybody.
And I agree with you, Mr. Mayor. I agree with you. I think they're working hard.
Okay, great. Everybody, let's move on to the next thing. Thank you all. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next on the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is ID-20-21, update on the Hillman Garage and City Dock project.
Right, now I'll have a challenge to make Eileen Fogarty reduce her presentation slightly, because we are running out of time.
We will be very brief, Mr. Mayor. We've got a short one for you. First of all, thank you very much. I know that was fascinating. So hopefully we can keep you on your edge of your seats as well as the terrific group that just spoke did. We just ask in interest of time that you hear the speakers and then we'll open it up for questions. We have AMRP, Ivan Doolin, Bryce Turner, Drew Lewis. We also have Wendy O'Sullivan from the Park Service and Chris Haley to talk about a new initiative. So with that, I am going to get started with the presentation. Next slide, please. Next slide after that. This next slide is for the public who is watching for their benefit. What the city is undertaking here is a major reinvestment into our downtown waterfront and the city's future. Next slide. Because the city decided that now is the time with these floods every year, 51 days a year, to act. Next slide, not just on the flooding, but on reinvesting in Hillman Garage with both a new garage and a robust parking strategy. Next slide, and City Manager Gerald.
Thank you, Eileen. So very briefly, where we are right now, we're doing some site investigation for Hillman Garage and City Dock, but most importantly is AMRP is doing an investment grade parking study. And what that's going to tell everybody is how much the revenue, the future revenue of the new parking garage is going to support as far as a debt issuance goes. That debt issuance will pay for the construction of the garage and will also pay the developer cost. But thirdly, it will pay for the concession payment to the city. So that's a critically important piece of this is how much revenue will this new garage spin off in the future? So AMRP is doing a lot of data gathering on past parking for the entire city, for on-street parking, for all the parking garages, to try and make a projection for the next 30 years of how much revenue the new garage will produce. Next slide, please. We're also doing a lot of meetings. As it says here, the city departments are engaged. We currently have 5 different committees that are working. The first one is a technical committee, so they'll look at the design and construction pieces, and Mike Johnson's leading that. The second is parking and mobility. Rick Gordon is leading that, and they're looking at the transit system and how we're going to get people downtown during the construction, as well as all the factors involved with parking. We have a financial group. That group hasn't kicked off a whole lot yet, but Jody will lead that. The fourth is a public relations and outreach group that Mitchell and Eileen Fogarty are leading. And the last one is the overall steering committee, which I'm leading. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ivan and to Bryce from AMRP for their presentation.
Next slide.
Hi, thank you, David, and thank you to the City Council for this opportunity to provide a little bit of an update. When we were back, we did a presentation back in December, and I thought I'd just do a little bit of a recap of the process and then get into kind of where we are and what we're doing. So we are now in the what we've called the feasibility review of the pre-development agreement process. So during this period, we are reviewing the assumptions that we had for the bids and going through a process of comparing different structures and alternatives to kind of optimize the solution, both for Hillman Garage and City Dock. So we're in the early process that's going to stretch through the end of the year and for City Dock into the following year. So if we skip to the next slide. So right now, we're kind of midway, a little bit over midway through the feasibility review. And as David, the city manager, mentioned, the one of the keys or key components of that is the initial review of parking and mobility in the city. The parking study will be able to give us an indication of what the revenue will look like, it being still early days, but it will give us the ability to forecast what revenues can be projected, which in turn helps fund both Hillman Garage and City Dock, or a concession payment to the city to be used for City Dock. In addition to the parking study, we have started the process of updating the designs and layouts that were produced as part of our proposal to the city last year, and spent a lot of time doing diligence work on the property boundaries. We started archaeology and historical investigations. Geotech and environmental have also been kicked off. And as mentioned by the city manager and Eileen, we are undertaking kind of continual outreach activities and coordination with the city and City Dock Action Committee. And I have to say, we have a very good working relationship with the city departments and staff. And as city manager mentioned, kind of have a fixed structure in place to make sure that we're kind of continually on top of information requests, et cetera, as we move forward here. If we can skip to the next slide. So one item that I did want to highlight on the community and engagement and outreach, in addition to the meetings that we have had and participated in, we will be putting together a website that can provide the public with some information related to the project. I know there's a lot of interest naturally in the project, a lot of questions of what's going to happen during construction, et cetera, what's going to happen to parking during the time the Hillman is offline. And while we are at kind of very early stages in the process, we do want to have a spot where people can go to and get some information, even though it is early stages, and more updates will follow. In addition to that, the website will have the ability to register for future MBE, DB, and SBE opportunities for the project. We are at such an early stage, so there's not too much. There's not too much information to be able to provide, but what we do want to do as the project is getting attention in the early stages is to provide the opportunity to register interest, so that when the program is set together with the city, we can then reach out to folks that have already registered interest, in addition to a broader rollout. If we jump to the next slide. So what I want to do is provide a little bit of an overview of some of the design updates and some of the solutions that we're looking at, recognizing that it's a little bit of an ongoing process as we move forward, but to kind of illustrate some of the ideas and examples of designs that we're looking at, and we'll be coming back to City Council with also at a later date. So if we can jump to the next slide. So what we are doing now is taking the concept that was put together for the proposal, which again was an extension of the work that the City Dock Action Committee had done, and starting to dive into the more technical details and layouts that can provide what's needed in the form of both protection against sea level rise and flooding, but also maintain access. So we're starting to look at the the nitty-gritty solutions around flood barriers, elevations that we need to design to, how to combine public access to the water with ongoing protection. So I wanted to run through some examples of that. So if you can jump to the next slide. So what we are viewing is, and what you see on in front of you is a cross section of the promenade all the way towards the inner end of Ego Alley, where you have an existing walk zone before the angled parking lot. And one of the things that we are viewing is and want to do is the elevation that you see on the side is kind of mean level sea level up to 5, which is the current bulkhead, which was installed in 2015. That's at that level 5. And what we're doing now is viewing how can we provide a solution that ties into the existing bulkhead, and how can we design a solution that combines both that water access with the access from the existing elevations at the parking and views that the local businesses have, et cetera. So if we can jump to the next slide. So here you can see one of the ideas that we're exploring, which is effectively utilizing the existing bulkhead construction, raising the promenade to that level, roughly elevation 5, and then continuing out the city dock with an initial flood wall, which is a foot or so higher, with then a flip-up gate on top of it, which when the flip-up gate is activated, gets you up to around elevation 8. And by doing so, combining the need for that larger or higher sea level and storm surge protection without infringing on views and access to the water. And one of the things that will be key as we move forward and refine these ideas is kind of nailing down what level is the right level to design to. What we want to do is balance both the cost of the city dock construction and the need for sea level protection. Creating something that goes to elevation 8, if it's not going to be needed for 30 years, isn't necessarily the best use of public funds. So we want to be sure that we balance the need for, or the cost of the work for when the need is going to arise. If we flip to the next slide, the other thing that we want to do is provide access to physical access, but also a felt access to the water. So another potential solution could be to include, instead of that smaller wall with a flip-up barrier, introduce some concepts like transparent flood walls that are used elsewhere, which has a transparent surface which provides access or provides visual tie-in from the city dock to the water, but provides that continual flood level protection. And this can naturally be designed in several different heights as we move out city dock. So those are but 2 of a multitude of options that we are reviewing. So this is just before this meeting, we had one of our weekly meetings where we go through all of these different alternatives, and towards the end of this feasibility process or review, we will be putting together a proposed solution, which is kind of the output of the review and balance of the different cost as well as access and technology challenges associated with some of these different solutions. So if you can jump to the next one. So that was on the kind of flood barrier side. The other thing that we are working on and developing is the park space. And as I mentioned back in December, and I'm going to sound like a broken record for those of you who have heard some of the presentations given to the City Dock Action Committee, is resiliency is more than just protection against sea level. It is also providing a space, public space, and activating a public space that can be utilized in different ways throughout the year. And key to that is the park area. So we are we're in the early phases of starting the kind of initial programming and design of that park. Bryce Turner will talk a little bit more about that later in the presentation. We are also, as part of this, going to be outlining areas that can incorporate cultural and historic monuments and can be used to kind of celebrate the history of City Dock and have that be incorporated at the early stage of a design. So that's not a bolt-on, but actually incorporated from the start. We are also looking at potentially developing what is now the Donner parking lot to see if that can be utilized as a park space as well. There are some benefits of that, of tying into the other side of Ego Alley. Some of that will also depend on the parking and revenue study that is underway when it comes to parking capacity and parking need. But it is an idea that we feel is definitely worth exploring because of what it can give to the community and the public space in the area. So with that, I can jump to the next slide. So in addition to the design work and update that we're doing at City Dock, we're undertaking the same here for Hillman Garage. So we have been spending a fair amount of time looking at how to update the garage design that we had as part of the proposal. So if we can skip to the next one. I just want to here, skip 2 ahead. So here here is the updated design that we're working on. One of the things that you'll see is we are doing a couple of things. We're moving the ramp from the front, currently the front of the building, to the rear of the building. We're breaking up the facade to provide a little bit of a different scale. It's not the massive metal facade that we had as part of the proposal. We're also, by this layout, will also provide a little bit better flow in the garage and garage operations, and move some of the stair towers from the front to the rear as well, which or middle and rear, which will help with the visual impact the garage has, particularly from Gorman Street. If we can jump to the next slide. So here you can see the current garage with the stair tower in the front, and set very the facility itself is also set very close up to the property boundary, so there's no pedestrian walkway along the garage, which also causes some safety issues with having to immediately cross the garage or cross Gorman Street coming out of the garage. If we flip to the next one, you'll see here that we're planning on setting back the garage slightly to provide a walkway. We're moving the stair tower so it doesn't the building itself doesn't feel as imposing. You'll see we're breaking up, as I mentioned, the facade. We're also looking at facade materials that are more in keeping with the historic design of Annapolis, so brick as well as wood, a wood screen. You'll also note that we have maintained the garage openings that we showed as part of the proposal to provide some pop-up stores and activation of Gorman Street. And if you skip to the next slide. Yeah, similar on this side or on the other side as well. Very imposing ramp, kind of, I guess unintentionally breaks up the facade to a certain extent, but with the ramp in the front, it does mean that as a new visitor, you're immediately forced into a choice of, do I go up or do I enter the garage, get my bearings, and then look for a parking spot. So it lowers the actually the stress levels of the users of the facility by having a little bit more time before you access the ramps, and helps with garage operations. Mm-hmm. So if you flip to the next one. Yeah, and here in comparison here again, you'll see this the scale of the front and the building just looks generally a little bit more appealing. Granted, this is again an updated design. There's still a long way to go, but this is the direction that we're heading. We're hoping to skinny down the footprint of the building, which then enables us to move this facility back. And by all intents, that looks like that should be feasible. And again, what we want to do is provide some movable gates here. What you see in black are intended to be kind of garage gates that can be removed to provide kind of pop-up stores and spaces as discussed for minor shops and events and things of that nature, to have a garage that provides some flexibility and use going forward. So with that, we can skip to the next slide, and I'll hand it over to Bryce to talk a little bit about the programming of the public spaces.
Thanks, Ivan. As Ivan said, it's been a great working relationship with the city. A number of interesting explorations have happened, and including things like this fountain in the image that we're looking at here. I can tell you that especially the engineers with the city are making us work hard to prove that we're thinking about the details in the right way here, which is interesting. This is a view of the park at City Dock, and we think, and we still believe, that this project is going to be a real case study for the way you can deal with resiliency at the water's edge and still create some public realm space. So right at Dock Street, where we go from a parking lot, if you will, today, where we have 2 bays of parking near Mission Barbecue, where the existing Harbor Master building is, you'll see this green expanse spread out in front of you. But we do think there's this opportunity for a dancing fountain here, which I think could be very engaging. It comes with a whole set of things that we're working through, such as bathrooms and lifeguards potentially and things like that. But we think this is going to continue to be a wonderful addition to City Dock and a great way to deal with the resiliency issue. A lot of things to still consider. But if you move to the next slide, please. Julian, this was one of our early images from the proposal, which is from this view, especially this distance, it's going to still look very much the same. There's nothing that we're kind of tweaking or playing with that changes this kind of 20,000 foot view. But you can see in the foreground there where the dancing fountain will be, the water fountain that we're investigating, the reduced size Harbor Master building that will become a public toilets and a pump house for the very important pump facility that's required to keep nuisance flooding from happening here. And then, of course, the extension of the promenade, which will look similar in a lot of ways to the way it looks today, but it will be at a higher elevation, as Ivan mentioned. Next slide. These were some of the plans from the original proposal, the pump house where we are housing some of that equipment, but we also thought it was a great opportunity to have public toilets here. I can tell you that we've all learned from some great public places like Bryant Park in New York that it's absolutely critical that you have toilets for citizens and visitors and tourists alike in a location like this, a public location, so that people can linger for a long period of time. And then on the right is a conceptual floor plan of the upper level of this building, which we thought could be a viewing deck of some kind and used for potentially for certain functions. This building design has not been developed any further at the moment until we get some more input on the pumps. But if you head to the next slide, please, you get a view of these two together. I'm sure the design is going to develop a little bit further here as we continue to work with HPC and the National Park Service on how some of these structures can engage and coordinate with the Burtis House and other things that are happening here at City Dock. But it's a great opportunity for pop-up games, pop-up food, and a very flexible space that will work for the boat show, we believe, as well as pop-up opportunities that can happen. And I think Chris Haley is going to be speaking with us some more about some of the other discussions that we're beginning to have about programming along the edge of this public space. For instance, you know, there's a real opportunity to have messaging within the stone here and plaques and even small exhibits that can speak to the history of City Dock, about all the incredible things that have happened here throughout its long history, and also about, you know, pointing towards the future with things that are going to be happening in the new history that we're creating here, which is also important. Next slide, please. Just another view as we walk around this fountain area, which I think is going to be a big hit with the kids, as these types of things always are, especially on a hot day in Annapolis. Next slide. And again, looking back towards City Dock and Dock Street, rather. So we think this is going to be continue to be a very exciting space. I'm very pleased that we've been able to continue with the design direction that was established by the Action Committee, and there's still a lot of work to do, but we're excited as we start getting into some of these details and looking at how we can make City Dock as accessible as possible, not only physically, but also culturally accessible and friendly and welcoming to all the residents of Annapolis. Next slide.
Okay, that's back to me. So I just want to mention kind of briefly that it's important to keep in mind as we look at these different options for the parking garage. We have a current garage that's 425 spaces. We want to go to at least 575, but we've got the same footprint, and we probably are going to have the same height limitations that we have with the current garage. So as we look at these, if we need to go deeper, there's an increased cost. If we want to make the building more appealing, which is what AMRP has done from the original proposal to the current proposal, it's actually a more expensive building. Each dollar of additional money that we spend on the Hillman garage takes away from what we're going to get as a concession payment. So I think it's really important to keep that in mind. This is sort of a zero-sum game where the revenues of the future garage are going to drive how much bond financing that we can afford, as I mentioned earlier, which is going to drive how much we're going to spend on the garage, the development fees, and the concession payment. So we're trying to be very cost conscious as we move through these design deliberations and look at the options, because we want to maximize the money that comes to the city down the road. So happy to answer questions afterwards about that, but it's important that we be very cost conscious as we move through these design options.
Thank you so much, David. Wendy, next slide.
Great, super. Hello all, Wendy O'Sullivan. I'm the superintendent for the National Park Service Chesapeake Bay office based here in Annapolis. NPS Chesapeake is excited to partner with our hometown to advance the City Dock project and specifically the stabilization and revitalization and activation of the Burtis House and Wharf. We are committed to ensuring with the city and partners that the Burtis House and potential addition has a power of place, that it links to its maritime heritage, that it's welcoming to all and works as a launching point with partners across the city and across the maritime districts to connect Annapolis's diverse communities back to their creeks and bays. We all know that there's parts of the city that have been cut off, that have been disconnected. And together, I truly believe we're on a path to correct that and to reconnect back to the water. We look forward to supporting the city's efforts to expand equitable access to the water and outdoors, advance inclusive storytelling and cultural connections. I'm also really interested to find ways to, the ways that the NPS can help promote a resilient and healthy community and leverage support for local Chesapeake-based industries and economies. We see the Burtis House and City Dock as being sort of the entry point there. And just so in case some of you have heard, Senator Van Hollen has announced last week that he's considering legislation to create a new Chesapeake National Recreation Area. Now, while the NPS is going to wait to take a position on the new national park until the legislation is introduced, I think we can all say that it is clear that the opportunities in and around Annapolis today and into the future are truly exciting and substantial. So I'll just end it there and pass it off to Chris.
Thanks, Wendy. So exciting. Chris?
Hi, thank you all so much. I'm very happy and proud to be here today. And in the consciousness of time, I will just read a brief statement as you all absorb these images and the verbiage that's in front of you. I first like to thank Mayor Buckley for asking me to be a part of this effort to create a multicultural experience in the midst of the epic City Dock Reimagined project. He, Will Rao, and Eileen have welcomed me on to a leadership role in assisting to gather minds and hearts and physical skills to build something which will represent not only an inclusive and diverse city dock for Annapolis, but an engaging, proud, and warm destination for all visitors from our state and our entire nation. The goal of this multicultural experience, this physical manifestation, this spiritual location, is to instill people of all ethnic backgrounds, religions, humanities, and yes, even political perspectives, to feel that this site has been created to promote the contributions of a worldwide us, not an individual them. One site for all to promote what's right. One site that will shine morning, noon, and night. We welcome and need your continued support, good wishes, advice, and upon occasion, we might ask for $1 or $2. Thank you.
You are so terrific. We're thrilled to have Chris join us. Next slide. In addition to everything that Chris and that group team is going to do, we're in the midst of massive outreach. David talked to you about all of the work sessions. They will be ongoing with the businesses, the residents, the Preservation Commission, the council. But in addition to that, we're going to be meeting with focus groups and with working teams. Probably the first one will be parking along with Maritime, bringing both the downtown residents, the businesses, other stakeholders from throughout the community together to work with AMRP to make sure they have everyone's input as they come up with these various images and ideas. We are very excited about the fact that AMRP Hunt has hired a PR and marketing firm, which will put up an interactive website, news media connections, the newsletters, social media. And as we get to the point where the garage will be coming down this winter, they will put out apps so that people can find their way around downtown. Next slide, please. The bottom line is that residents, businesses, the community at large will be engaged in two ways. One, giving their inputs and reacting to a lot of what Bryce and his team will be presenting, but also separately, there'll be a robust communication plan so that everyone knows what's going on, particularly during construction. So the input is going to be in three phases. First, the pre-development phase, which will be about designing Hillman as well as the interim parking strategy. Next slide, please. The next phase is partially concurrent this summer through next summer, 2022, and that'll be the comprehensive parking and mobility strategy and the design for the dock. And of course, the construction phase starts this winter through 2024, and that'll be a lot of coordination and logistics with everyone downtown to make sure that people know what's happening with the construction. Last slide, we are very excited. We want to hear your ideas and your direction. Thank you.
All right, let's do that. Thank you. I've never seen this group be speechless. I'm sure there's a question or two.
Yes, I do.
Alderman Pendle-Charles.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Eileen and team. A wonderful presentation. I heard about space down at the city dock and what it can accommodate. I'm wondering, will it be able to accommodate our Kunta Kinte Festival that we've been having for the past several years down at the city dock? And the other thing I want to mention, I don't know if AMRP has a connection to Mazda, but I noticed there were two slides with two little Mazda emblems on cars. So just wanted to know, just curious.
Rhonda, let me tell you, absolutely. That space is roughly 1.5 acres. Bryce can correct me. And it'll not only accommodate the Kunta Kinte Festival, but a lot of Chris's heavy lifting will be to be working with a variety of people from the community to see how else we want to tell our stories and how else people want to experience it. So it'll be others as well.
Any connection to Mazda?
I think the designer might just like the brand. There's no connection to Mazda.
Okay, just curious. Thank you.
Rhonda, you have a Mazda?
No.
Alderman Tierney.
Oh, yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's funny because my two questions, it just sort of tells you the different ways of looking at this project, sort of aesthetically, historically versus, the engineering part of it. So my first quick question is to Chris. Your second slide, please tell me what street that is. Is that Prince George behind? Do you have the slide again? Eileen, can you show it?
Let's go back. It's only 3 or 4 slides.
Yeah. I also want my colleagues to see the scale of that street behind Latitude.
Julian, Can you take us back? I think that's the one.
Yeah. That second slide looks like it's Prince George Street. And I just wanted to verify that.
Have to check that because, of course, it's historic. It's from our collection.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want to misstate it because not being a native Annapolitan,
yeah,
I know that I have a guess, and that guess is that it leads right down in City Dock. So I would guess that it's the one that on the side of where Harvest House is or Harvest is right now.
I think.
Yeah, that's my thinking. But then, without me having put the text there.
That's fine. I just want my colleagues to see and get a grasp of the scale, on that side of the project and what your challenges are. But my second, not really question, but comment is, number one, you're making me want to go back to work in construction, but no, number two, the existing bulkhead, I just have to congratulate you in the sense that you are working with that existing benchmark and not, it looks like you're working off of that existing bulkhead. And I just wanted to summarize the extent of that. Is my understanding correct that you will springboard off of that, if you will? Because that's a cost savings, instead of building on top of it or trying to, rectify it.
Yep. Yeah, no, and it's fairly new, recently installed, so we want to use as much as the infrastructure that's there that we can. So, and that's not where the flooding issues have been. So it provides a good baseline to build off of. So we want to incorporate that as much as possible around the city dock.
Okay. Can you just explain real quickly, the promenade is then extended into Ego Alley, the full length of Ego Alley? I mean, the
Correct.
Full length. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you again for the presentation. Thank you, Eileen.
Alderman Gay.
Thanks. Is it possible at all to expand the garage, the top part of it, and include a garden, a rooftop garden, like how they do in urban cities, expanding the green landscape? And I think too, it'd be something that's attractive to bring more people downtown, because then you can go grab lunch and go eat on the rooftop garden or something. I don't know, just to attract people to the downtown area. Is that something that's possible?
So Alderman Gay, if we had unlimited height, we could certainly look at that. We're very constrained by the height, and we need every single inch that we can get as far as the height goes, because there's a height limitation right there. And so we're trying to squeeze the number of spots that we need into the current height. But if we had additional height, we'd love to have that concept. We'd love to have solar panels up there. We'd love to have a lot of different things, but we're so constrained by the height.
Is this height set by the city council?
Basically, yes.
Yeah. So why don't we change the height to accommodate the project so that we can have the best for our residents and tourists? I mean,
terrific.
Yeah, and we love that idea. We're going to work through HPC first and through the Planning Commission and see what we can get accomplished. And if we're at a standstill, then we'll come to the council.
Yeah, I think you should. I think we should be aggressive and, use us for stuff like this, so that we could have a great project. And then lastly, the art, I do appreciate that. And I hope that it could be interactive, something that could bring people, something that, just really tells the story of African Americans in the city of Annapolis. And so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. It is 5:04. We truly appreciate the presentation, and we sure and know there are lots more to come. I want to thank you for keeping us informed along the way and being totally transparent on where we're heading. And the input is all great. And everyone knows where Eileen is, so it's not like you can't get to her to impact the project. So with that, I will say thank you, and I'll hand it over to Alderman Payon if he is here.
I move that we adjourn, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, anything else for good order?
I love you.
All those in favor say aye for adjournment. Aye.
See you.
Meeting adjourned.